Here's a build plan I wanted to go ahead and show you. I've got everything painted out. What I'm going to do here is take one of those Gen 8 Plus or Gen 8.5 gearboxes that I have from Emerboo. So it's got the metal gears in it. It's got an upgraded 1.2 spring, a high-speed motor, and metal barrel. And I'm going to actually even try to put a bigger spring in it to see what kind of differences we can get with that. And I wanted to make a cool custom kit for it. So you can see I got everything painted out here, but I haven't put anything together. So I wanted to show you a little bit as to what I'm gonna do, right? So obviously we got it all painted out, kind of going with that flat army green and then the desert tan. So for the barrel, or excuse me, the handguard, went ahead and printed this and had to modify it a little bit. It was actually for an MK23, and MK23 kits are all over for airsoft. It's a popular pistol style airsoft blaster, and there's all kinds of different carbine kits and stuff, so there's a lot of cool barrels. Of course, there's considerable modification to it now. A lot of that I can do on my computer now. So went ahead and cut that, made it the right length. You can see in here, it has the proper connection, so it can just go ahead and twist right on into the M4a1, and that's all printed into it. So I figured out how to do that, which of course makes it much easier, cleaner, better overall, so that's cool. For the outer barrel, we got this piece right here that just is gonna slide in, and then there's a couple spots where it'll get locked down with really tiny screws right here and on this side. And then those tiny screws are gonna get covered up by rails anyway. So they're gonna be slightly recessed in. And then I've got the rails to go right over the top. So there'll be rails, quad rails, so rail on every side here, which will be nice. And the top rail should line up with the top rail of the receiver. So that's cool. Do have a little riser we'll go ahead and put on there just to, you know, it's nice to put more accessories on, not that it's necessarily needed, right? So we'll do that. Made a little kind of, you know, fake suppressor, you know, if you want to call it a barrel extension, whatever you want to call it. And this will just, of course, screw on to the end right here. And then you can see it repeats the same pattern. So I thought that was kind of cool to just make a little smaller version, put the 14 millimeters counterclockwise threads on there. So that was, again, something new I learned or figured out how to do on my own. And I don't do it in a traditional modeling sense. I basically stack and build things in the 3D Slicer software. So if you're into 3D printing, you'll kind of know what I mean there. And that's actually worked out pretty well. Occasionally it allows me to export those STLs so I can save them, but sometimes when I do that and then try to print them again, it prints places solid that shouldn't be solid. So I don't necessarily have STLs for these parts because it sometimes won't allow me to do that. Other thing I'm doing here, drop stock. So this is just a cool, different drop stock that I haven't done before, which I really like the looks of. And that'll just attach on to the back right here. Okay, and then I put my drop stocks on a little different than you would traditionally because this isn't made to receive that necessarily, and I use rivet nuts. So you see there's some rivet nuts there. You can see they're kind of plastic welded in and glued in, and they're made so that when you do start screwing in, it's going to pull this piece that way. So if it did loosen, it's going to stay tight because it can't go any other direction. And what I mean if it did loosen is if any of this glue or plastic weld loosened, it's still going to hold tight because it has to if you screw it in. So this will just slide on here. Those two will just get screwed through there. You know, I'll use a washer up here, and then this other one will go right through there. And the wires will come in. Actually, I was going to do the wires right through there because that way they won't be seen. And I plan on tapping a couple little spots like right here and right on the other side and just have the wires come out kind of in between these two so they can just go through this little channel kind of right in there, right? So that way the wires will stay hidden and that should look nice. And then with my stock here, this will just, or excuse me, with my buffer tube, this will just push on all the way. It's really tight already. I'll probably put just one small grub screw up through the bottom. So again, not necessarily how it's intended, but that definitely works with this type of blaster and this type of build. For the stock itself, I've used the stock before, but I wanted a smaller version of it, so I shortened it because this is going to be, you know, more of a CQB style blaster, but I liked the looks of this, so I went ahead and I shortened the stock so that it's less, you know, just this way, right? So we retain the dimensions of the buffer tube like we need to. And then again, I find that using like rivet nuts right here, and then I have a nice little, you know, bolt that has a nice stippled kind of plastic piece on it that allows you to screw it and unscrew it. And this will just go on, of course, the back there and screw it in. So that should look nice, right? So we got all those nice colors kind of going together, mixed up across the blaster, which I think will look really cool. Lastly, just, you know, like I said, a little foregrip to go down on the bottom of the handguard, okay? So that is my next build. It'll be interesting to see. I'm going to push this pretty hard with a big spring, probably bigger than I should, just depending on what I have around when I get to putting this back together. So I'll make sure to have a disclaimer that try at your own risk, as you know, I don't want you guys to ruin your blaster without knowing that there's a possibility of doing that. So just thought we'll go ahead and give it a try and see what happens. All right, so check back. I'll get it all put together. I'm going to let the paint sit probably for another day. It's already sat for a full 24 hours since I was done without touching it. Probably give it another day just so it cures really good. That's the hardest part, is being patient. But then we'll get it put together. And of course, then I will show you guys that, and we'll do a demo and FPS test. And let me know what you think. Comments or questions, post them below. Of course, like, subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and participate in those monthly giveaways.